I'm just going to, yeah, I'm just going to have a little background music play. Good
Okay.
morning in the West Coast. Good morning. Good
Good morning from
afternoon in the
Chicago.
East Coast. Arthur Ward from Chicago is here with me. I am so ecstatic to have this conversation today. My name is Angela Nirvana, and I am your host on the Friends of ADOS TV channel. And we are always talking about ADOS hot topics and discussing and making the case for reparations some more.
Right.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got about 2 minutes before we actually have to be on the live, but I thought I'd get some things flowing with my brother, Robert Sine, whose music is playing in the background to set the tone for what we do best. Love
Right.
one another and spread great information about one another and talk about the issues relative to one another. Right, family? That's what we do over here at the Friends of ADOS TV. So we got about another minute and then I'm going to get it going. All right?
Okay.
Enjoy the sounds while I set this up to go to try to create a watch party on.
Okay.
Good morning, Justin Mathis. Thank you for being on the live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to say it yet again because it's now 9 o'clock and the people are coming into the live because they got the word that we go live at 9 o'clock. So let me say good morning on the West Coast. Good afternoon on the East Coast. I am fired up and ready to go. Today is an amazing day. We are so blessed to have on the live Mr. Arthur Ward and Mr. Marlon Watson, who will be joining us soon from the ADOS Chicago. These brothers are just leading the charge in the Chi and all over the country the way we do. For those of you who are new to what we do, good morning, Drew Jackson. I see you. Good morning, Shamika Andrews, ADOS ATL. Yeah, when you file into the chat, let me know where you herald from. Let me know what chapter you're picking up bricks and slinging hard from. I love to recognize and acknowledge you on the live. In any event, these brothers out of Chicago are doing big things. And namely, they have their thumb on the pulse of everything ADOS. And they are here today to inform us about making the case for reparations some more. We're going to talk about the veterans. Did you guys know that 55% of veterans are homeless? And of those 55%, 45% are ADOS? Yeah, family. We've got to do something about our veterans. And also, I am so excited that the gentlemen out of ADOS Chicago are here today because I know that you guys have been hearing about the state reparations, right? Yeah,
Right.
that's a trick bag, family. And Mr. Arthur Ward and Mr. Marlon Watson are going to unpack that for us and help us to avoid these pitfalls. They trying it, y'all. Can you believe it? They trying to couch our repair under these class-based policies. And what have I been sharing on my lives, family? All together now, class-based policies do not fix race. Class-based policies are not reparations, a debt that is owed, not just for slavery and Jim Crow, but for accrued, ongoing, systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. Be proud to be ADOS, family, because you've got a justice claim. No need to flee to Africa, which, I've been hearing a lot about that. How Ghana has earned close to $2 billion off of bringing us back to the country and selling us where we were sold from. Make it make sense, family. How is any of that working? Where are the reparations from them having sold us into slavery? That's what I'd like to know. Where's the land? Somebody said that there was land, but they didn't follow it up with no data. And Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore have taught us how to be about that data, right, family? Good morning, ADOS North. Yes, slinging by yourself. Oh, we got to fix that. We got some people in the North. You should not be slinging by yourself, sister. Good morning, Pam. Y'all stay on code. Yes, we do, baby. We stay on code. All right now. So anyway, while Marlon is working to get into the live, let me dig in with Mr. Arthur Ward. He is here to share with us about the local versus national reparations. We've been hearing about these statewide reparations and how we cannot afford, family, to settle for the statewide repair because that's going to mess up the number, the big trillions that we're due if we do that. Oh, good morning, Trey. Thank you for being on the line. Okay, I lost Arthur. So while he's coming back in, let me because I need him to talk about this, family. I thought that out here in California, when they were talking about state reparations, no. Okay, hold on one second. Marlon's asking if I can see and hear him. I can't. Okay. Just a second, family. I'm on. I don't see y'all. Say something. Try again because we don't see you. We don't see nor hear you. Okay. Anywho, let me go back to the Ghana piece. Now, family, I am not opposed to us going to Africa for vacation. What I take issue with is that most of us can't afford to go to Africa. Okay? Let me go back to the stats just to remind us so we understand why we're picking up bricks. That out of $103 trillion or $107 trillion, I think it is, white people share $100 trillion. 90% of ADOS share $700 billion. And 10% of us share $2.3 trillion. How are ADOS able to afford to go to Ghana and pay twice as much, I think it's 10 times as much as the locals? What they're doing over in Ghana is they're offering one price to the locals, and then they're jacking up the prices for the Yankees, as they call us. How does any of this work? How are you going to be responsible for selling us into slavery and then want to sell us exorbitant packages starting at about $5,000? Hi, Marlon, there you are. I'm bringing you upstairs.
Working on my computer for some reason.
Okay, well, I see you now. I hear you now. Arthur popped out, so I'm waiting on him to pop back in, but not really waiting. We're going to move on because I've only got an hour with you. But
Okay.
welcome, Marlon. Hi, Joe. Thank you for joining the live. ADOS Washington's in the building. I love it. Okay, Marlon, let's get into it.
Can y'all hear me?
I'm going to,
Can you hear me
yeah,
clearly?
I can, who's that, Marlon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly, brother. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Just don't do a whole lot of movement if you're on your phone. I might lose you because I
Okay.
lost Arthur.
Gotcha.
But anyway, let me wrap up what I was saying about Ghana and why I feel they're profiting off our enslavement yet again. I saw an ad come out on my Facebook wall that they had earned close to $2 billion selling these packages to all over the world. But, you know, ADOS are clamoring to get back to Ghana to see where we were sold from. But as Yvette Carnell said on her Breaking Brown show this week, that the packages that they're selling to us are like 10 times more than what the locals have to pay. And they're making huge profits off of us having been enslaved by bringing us back to the castles and the shores where we were sold from. Now, my question to Ghana is, why isn't this free? Why aren't they flying us over there for free? Why aren't they paying us reparations? Why aren't they giving us land in Ghana? Why aren't they giving us the reparations so we can set up international business in Ghana? Instead of, once again, profiting off of our enslavement. Family, we always have to be on alert for all of these gangs that are out here to scheme and profit off of our eating this failure of slavery in this country. Be on alert. Be on the high watch. Okay, family, don't fall for this stuff. And like I said, I can't afford to go to Africa, so it's a non-issue for me. But don't break your budgets going over there to pay a bazillion more dollars than you should be. If you were to schedule a trip to Africa on your own, you would not have to be paying these exorbitant fees to go and see where you were sold from. I'm not disparaging that type of trip for you if that is something that you do, but do it wisely, family. And for goodness sake, don't blow what you got going on over here thinking Africa is a solution for you. Your justice claim is here. So be here with your family and get your justice claim going and pick up a brick if you haven't already. Okay, fam? In any event, I'm going to go back to those hot topics, time permitting, at the end. I definitely want to have Marlon introduce himself briefly, and let's get into the homeless vets. Marlon, I've already shared with them that there are 55% of the vets are homeless in this country, and of those 55%, 45%, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is are Black, ADOS. So Marlon, I want to thank you. I've already just gave you guys such a big up while you were working to get on the live and shared about how you are the leaders of the ADOS Chicago chapter. I want you to share a little bit about your background before we get into today's topic.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the live, Angela. Appreciate it a whole lot. My name is
My
Marlon Watson. I chair the ADOS Chicago chapter and the Illinois ADOS Equity PAC. I believe Arthur, I don't know if Arthur's in here with us, but he's a co-chair of the PAC. And my personal background, I'm a veteran, Air Force veteran. Have worked in the space of service, for my community for since I can remember. I've always done things with the objective of serving my community. And it just so happened that I ran into the ADOS movement a couple years ago, and I found out that what I was doing, i.e., being a do-for-selfer, wasn't the most efficient way to serve my community. So once I got in tune with the ADOS movement, found Yvette online, I made a pivot, and the trajectory of my life was going. And now I'm here as an advocate for ADOS people, and I don't plan on going nowhere.
Well, we love it so much that you are using all of your gifts to move this movement forward. We thank you so much for that, and we thank you so much for your service. Thank you.
No problem.
I want for you to share with us about what you're doing to help uh, the veterans, the ADOS veterans, to get reparations. Is this in addition to the reparations for ADOS at large, or is it part of that whole reparations package?
So that's a good question. So I don't know the exact answer to that, to be honest with you. I just did an interview with Dr. Darity a few weeks ago. Um,
Yes, it was fire.
yeah. I've shared a piece of it, but I'm gonna share it in parts, and then I'll share the whole interview probably next week. But from that interview, what I learned was Dr. Darity's prescription for reparations for the price tag anyway would completely close the racial wealth gap. So his 10 to 12 trillion dollar price tag, which is a baseline, would eradicate the $1,700 net worth for ADOS compared to the hundred and whatever $1,000 median net worth for white Americans. It would completely eradicate that. So,
Wow, only
right.
10 to 12 trillion. I thought it was more like 17 trillion.
Well, no, he said,
17.
well, no, based on this work, the baseline is 10 to 12, and he said that that would close the wealth gap. He also said that there could be additional claims put on it. You know, if there were after research, if there were additional monies for additional things, then that that could be considered. But he's saying that that would close the wealth gap based off his research, 35 years of research. So with that being said, is there space in the veteran space for reparations? I mean, it could be. I think the families that were injured, the particular families that were injured, that were denied GI bills and that were denied VA housing assistance, etc. I think they
Mhm.
could make claims personally, and I think the descendants of those families should be compensated in that regard. So from that perspective, my personal opinion, I don't see why not. But my initial thing with veterans was to help add to closing the wealth gap. But from what Dr. Darity studies is saying, the reparations in general, the federal pure reparations package would do that. But again, if there are individual claims inside of the military's branches, Army, Navy, Marines, etc., where families have been denied and have been harmed and injured, then I would absolutely say that they should be able, in my assessment, be able to file some sort of justice claim.
Absolutely. Can you share with us a little history about the veterans, ADOS especially, our contribution to the liberation and the freedom in this country, and how a lot of the entitlements we were promised, we were literally cut out of? Can you talk about that?
Well, yeah. So I know many of us have heard this ad nauseum, but ADOS, Black Americans, have fought in every war that the United States has ever waged, from the Civil War to the Korean War to the Pearl Harbor, you name it, we fought in those wars. And many of those wars, we were the primary forces that made the wins successful. In the Pearl Harbor incident, from history, it was a black man who what made that war successful. You could talk about it's so many different incidences in history where black troops and black brigades were instrumental in in making a war campaign successful. And even with that, we'd go overseas and for American fight American wars, and we come back to America and be treated like second class citizens. Um, after in the 50s and 60s, white veterans would come back from war, and they would be privy to GI bills. They would be privy to housing assistance, housing military housing bills. And what this did was it allowed them to help build a white middle class. Well, black people would come back from the war, and we would try to access those same benefits, and we were largely denied. We were denied those benefits. And so, as white people were building middle classes, we were suffering in squalor and poverty, and we're still here today because of that.
Yes, indeed. Just give me a second. Arthur, I see him, but I don't see him and I don't hear him. Let me bring him on the phone uh, so that he can participate in this exchange.
Okay.
Just give me two seconds, please, to get him
Sure.
back in here. Thank you so much for your patience, family. You know the show must go on. It is what it is. Oh, God. I definitely want him in here as well. Nigel. You guys, if you have questions or comments, put them in the chat and I'll get to them closer to the end of the show. You guys, you're old hats to this. You know how we do it. Uh-oh, it's dropping me into his voicemail. Let me tell him to call me. Just a second. Okay. So Marlon, where'd you go? I don't see your face.
Can you see me?
There you are. I can see you now.
Okay.
Okay, just calling. Hi, Arthur. I know. Just get off the computer because I can't see you nor hear you, and there's feedback. Okay, so he's logging out of the computer. Just a second. Okay, did you log out the computer? Oh, wonderful. Can you guys hear Arthur? Can you hear that, Marlon? Can you hear Arthur? Okay, great. Okay, just a second, Arthur, and I'm going to bring you in. It's not allowing me to see nor hear you on live. But anyway, ADOS North says, factory, Marlon, my great uncles went to Vietnam and came back to the U.S. addicted to heroin.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of veterans came back from Vietnam and other wars addicted to drugs, but the white ones, even in their addiction, they were able to access benefits that could allow them to build their communities. So even in the midst of that, they were still able to build themselves into an American community. When you talk about different white ethnic groups, Germans, Polish, etc., they were able to come back home, get GI Bills, get home assistance, loans, grants, contracts, etc., and build their communities. We came back and suffering the same injuries and couldn't access the same money. So that's where the biggest issue is. I don't know if people know this, but during the Civil War, 200,000 black people served in the U.S. military. The Civil War. So every war we fought in, and we've never been able to access the benefits of a veteran.
How has this been allowed to happen? I mean, weren't we were entitled. And so you're telling, was there not legislation in place that could be enforced to ensure that we got what we were due? I don't understand how this happened to exist.
Well, I mean, back then it was so. I mean, you could get hung. You know, you could get hung for trying to make America do what they promised to do back in those days. So it's a different time now. But even now, we have claims and things that we should be privy to, and trying to access them, as we know, is a task. So it was worse back then. It was more difficult back then. So veterans were just, they were just kind of swept them under the rug. And then because of that, a lot of black veterans didn't even try and apply because they saw the results of those that were applying to receive the benefits that they were promised.
Wow. And we see that similarly today,
Yeah.
where they boast about the unemployment job numbers, but they're not accounting for the ADOS who have given up even searching for work.
Yeah.
They
They
don't
don't
even
even,
account.
yeah, from what I understand, they only count those who are receiving unemployment benefits or have recently just stopped receiving unemployment benefits. From my understanding, they don't count those who hadn't been in the job market for a period of time. So the unemployment numbers, based on what we see, is skewed.
Very much
So
so.
it's a
And
lot worse than we suspect.
it's a lot worse, and if it's a lot worse, then it's just, hellish for ADOS.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I, s- I read an article just recently here in Chicago that black men ages, I think, 18 35 or something like that, are like 40 to 50% unemployed. So it was just some crazy number. I don't know. I can't recall the exact number, but it was an alarming number. So it's worse than what we
Alarming.
know. Uh,
And this is what upsets me when people want to act as if we're just killing each other, for kicks and giggles. They don't
no, it's,
understand how all of it rolls one into another. When you don't have proper education and you can't get work, you defer to gangs and drugs and all these kinds of things to peddle just for basic survival. And
I mean,
so
it's,
now you're over gang territory and the whole yard. We have to get real, family, about how these things are interrelated.
I mean,
Go ahead, Marlon.
it's only a few ways in America to make money. One, you inherit money. Okay. Black people, we ain't hitting that category. Two,
Right.
you're a business owner. You know, you make money from a business. You're self-employed or something like that. Three, you're an employee. Four, you get public assistance. And five, you do crime. Okay, that's the last level. So black people ain't getting inheritance money because of the history of what they've done in terms of excluding us from wealth. So we don't get inheritance money like that. The second level is business owners. Our business, most of our businesses are, and for the record, we start more businesses than white people, to twice the rate. We start twice as many businesses as white people, and one and a half times as many as Hispanic people. But our businesses don't make significant amounts of money because our target market, which are black people, are poor people. The second level is self-employed folks. Well, that's what would be entered in business as well. And the third level is employees. And we know with black people, the income disparity gap is a huge thing. The wealth gap is one thing, but the income disparity gap, meaning how much you make for doing the same thing white people do, is atrocious. It's like almost half. Half you make almost nationally. It's almost half. The median household income for black people in Chicago is $30,000. The median household income for white people in Chicago is $70,000. So it's more than double what we make. So that says that they're getting paid a lot more than us on the income level. The fourth level is public assistance. You know, food stamps, Section 8, student loans, things like that. And many times in many states, if you're a felon, you can't access those things. And so
Right.
the last level is crime. And so if you can't fit in any of the other four levels, you're gonna commit crime, and you're gonna have to survive. You got to survive. So the crimes we see are crimes of necessity and poverty, and it
Thank you.
snowballs into violence and dysfunction. But it basically starts from crimes of necessity.
Absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. I want to get Arthur in on this conversation. Arthur, you still there with me? Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much for being here. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts about Joe Biden being on the recent Democratic debates and sitting up there after all of what Marlon has just shared in this little bit this morning about the state of ADOS in this country, how we have built the country, we have built the Democratic Party. I want to know from you, How did you feel when Joe Biden pretended to be begging for the question all of his natural born life and then deflect to immigration conversation? Can you share with us how that made you feel?
Oh, well, I didn't feel anything. And I'll tell you why. When I'm dealing with politics, it's a totally emotionalist thing. I play chess, and I look at what my opponents are doing and saying, and I'm learning from them so that the next time, if I haven't beat them this time, I'm going to beat them the next time. Okay? Right there, what Joe Biden was doing was fishing for Trump voters. And it was a very strategic statement that he did. He was going to find a way to worm that in there some kind of way. But what he was doing was raising a flag that, hey,
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I can't hear anything.
racism and so forth, I'm your man.
Oh, my apologies. Hold on, Arthur. Hold on one second. I can hear you, Marlon. You can't hear Arthur? Marlon?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm asking Marlon. He said he can't hear me. Marlon? Marlon, can you hear me? I see him, but I don't think he can hear me.
He might be.
He's having a little challenge. But family, can you guys in the chat let me know that you can hear Arthur because he's on my phone. He couldn't join us in the live. He's having some technical issues. It's not him. I trust that it's my Be Live that's giving some challenge here with getting them connected and staying connected. We're not going to have these problems in 2020, family. I'm going to be researching the best way to get everybody in live where everyone can be heard. So in the chat, let me know if you can hear Arthur, because I can hear him loud and clear. Thank you, Trey. Yes, they hear you. Tony, oh, thank you, Tony, for being on the live. Tony from New York. Okay, yes. So could you finish with what you were saying about how he was fishing on a fishing expedition for not only Trump supporters, but for Hispanics? Go ahead, please.
Yes, and he was also doing that thing for Hispanic. That's why it's important with some things in politics not to read too much into it, but just look at it for exactly what it is. Fishing expedition and reeling in Hispanic voters. That's what that was about.
My word. I thank you so much, Justin. Thank you, everybody, for endorsing that you can hear and see me. I just, I have a challenge. You guys know I get emotional about these things because it's just way too much to be fighting for this debt and to have the Democrats, whom we've been the mules of that party for 60 years, go on live TV and just, decimate the claim as if I don't know how not to be. I don't know how.
Angela, this is what you got to do.
Yes.
You got to turn this into a game because that's what it is. Okay, and this is what I mean by that. If we are in the game, we're not losing. There's two outcomes. There's winning and a challenge. Okay, and to many people, a challenge seems like you're losing. But what the challenge is that in quote unquote losing, this is an opportunity for you to study your opponents and get better. So all of these things that are coming at us are really just tools to sharpen us as political animals, because we have a lot of neophytes in ADOS, which is fine. That means that there's a lot of room for growth, and I want all ADOS to stop getting emotional about this stuff. We have to stay focused. We have to stay studied. We have to stay strategic, just like you would with a friend. You're playing chess with him. He's not your enemy until he kills you. But until then, this is your challenger, this is your opponent, and what you need to do is keep your head clear so that you can make the right choices make the right decisions and think things through properly.
Thank you so much for that, Arthur. We're at 9:32, and I don't want to miss this window. Marlon, I lost Marlon. Okay, it is what it is, family. The show must go on.
Okay.
I want you to please, let's get into it about the local versus the national reparations. You were cluing me in a little bit about how the local repair will upset the trillions we are due if we are not careful. Could you please expound on that?
Sure. This is what you young people call the overlay for the underlay. That's what all this stuff is. First of all, what they call local reparations is nothing but the things that local representatives are supposed to be doing anyway on a daily basis. And then they're relabeling local reparations, calling local reparations for two reasons. First of all, to cover up their shortcomings as legislators, because they're really not doing anything. And secondly, to look like they're doing something on the larger question of reparations for their future political prospects. That's what's really going on here. But in the meantime, what they're doing is that they're killing off the national question with 1,000 cuts. Understand that most localities, or all localities across the country, local, county, state, they get money from the federal government. And if they can take this money, call it reparations, when we finally get to the national level, the government can say, well, hey, we already paid you reparations, go away. And that's what we don't want to happen.
Absolutely. So when we hear these local reparations discussions cropping up, what would you advise we do in our respective states?
Well, I would say targeting your local representatives directly, okay, and explaining to them why you don't want this to happen. The other thing that happens with local reparations too is that some of this money is going into the pockets of non-ADOS people.
Yeah.
How can you call reparations if it's going into the pockets of Caribbeans, Africans, and in some cases white and Hispanic people? This is not reparations.
Wow.
Can you hear me now, Angela?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. I heard you guys.
Okay, let me let Arthur finish his thought. Go ahead, Arthur. You were saying how the reparations on a local level is going to be given to everyone, which doesn't make it reparations in the pure sense that we do for slavery and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage.
Right. Let me read this real quick. The federal government should be the only intermediary between the people and any reparation and compensation. Properly done, reparations should not and cannot be a state or municipal prerogative. We should be careful in not conflating local equity issues with reparations for descendants of American slavery. Both are important, both are different. One is pulling the knife of immediate local neglect out of our community's back. The other is to nationally heal a long-suffering chronic wound. Reparations are the latter. This is not to say that states and municipalities should not have an assistant role in reparations conversations and actions. When it comes to local and state participation, it should only be from the standpoint of accumulating and providing data regarding locally based companies, impact of ordinances, discriminating laws that are now and are previously on the books that were enforced, religious organizations, educational entities, unions, associations, and other institutions that directly participated in and or indirectly profited from slavery. That's the only role that local areas should be having in this reparation conversation. No expending of any monies, no designating of particular areas and calling that reparations for the delivery of benefits, none of that. Because the more that this stuff spreads, the more that it's going to kill the national taxation, and we can't have that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So Arthur is suggesting, family, that we reach out to our local representatives to let them know that there needs to be a distinction and keep the repair out of what they should be naturally doing for us as the constituents.
Right.
Let's not allow them to confuse the two issues so that the federal can say, well, you've already been awarded. Arthur, could you share with us where you read that from?
This is a document that I'm putting together. Hopefully, Marlon and the group approve this going national. But it's a statement regarding the difference between local and national reparations and why local reparations should not be done.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait for that national press release to blast it all over the social media and to get it in the hands of all the papers. I just thank you guys for this.
Angela.
Marlon, jump in. Go ahead, Marlon.
Yeah, so we that's the letter we're putting together here in Chicago. We hope to we want to get it to all the national chapters, well, the chapters nationally, and hopefully we'll all agree on the content and make that a public statement from ADOS as it relates to local reparations versus national. And so I also want to say what local reparations does is it interposes itself between local equity and national reparations. And if we aren't careful, it could serve to nullify both. What I mean by that is if a local municipality issues reparations, and what that does on a national level is it demotivates national politicians from passing a national reparations package. Why? Because they've already done it locally. Also, what it does is it gives presidential candidates an excuse. It gives them a way out. What I mean is it allows them to say, well, I agree with reparations, but they're doing it locally. So I think the state should, or the cities should handle reparations. And now it becomes a state's prerogative or a state's rights issue. That we don't want. Secondly, what it does is on a local level is if we're passing reparations locally, what it does on the local level, if we complain about not getting the equity that we should, we're not getting school funding like we should be, we're not getting a fair share of contracts like we should be, et cetera. Well, then locally people can say, well, we gave you reparations. You see, so when you allow local reparation, when you allow these initiatives to be labeled reparations, what it does is it serves to possibly nullify equity locally and reparations nationally. Reparations nationally is what we call pure reparations. And that means every descendant of slavery in America, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Hawaii, whether you live in Washington State, whether you live in Florida, if you're a descendant of American slavery, a pure reparations package would benefit you. You would get that money directly to you. On a local level, we have to worry about whether or not the state is going to pass it, whether or not the state agrees with progressive ideas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it causes a whole bunch of unnecessary mess, and it creates another mountain for us to climb on this national push. So we got to be real clear on what pure reparations is, and we have to be very, very clear as it relates to talking to our local representatives about not wanting pure or not wanting local reparations, but national.
The other thing, too, is that what makes the glaring difference between local reparations and national reparations is that reparations, the way it's supposed to be, is not geographically and chronologically limited. Okay? What I'm saying here is that another aspect of reparations that is necessarily disconnected from equity issues is that applicable eligibility for reparations travels with the eligible parties generationally. That eligibility is possessed perpetually and not limited geographically. Eligibility has no distinction between constituent or non-constituent, citizen or non-citizen. These provisions in these local initiatives that will repair or compensate those that live in those areas previously but now live in other areas, and that includes foreign countries. And I'll give you an example. For example, let's say if it can be proven that a resident that was governmentally injured that once lived in a certain area in, let's say, the year 1877, would that deceased individual's descendants that now live in other locations be eligible to apply for compensation? Or are the local reparations scope of reparations limited only to living individuals that are domiciled right there, right now? If that is so, local reparations cannot be called reparations at all. In other words, Angela, let's say if you had immigrated to France, became a naturalized citizen of France, okay?
Uh-huh.
Because you are still descended from American slavery, you are still eligible to apply for ADOS, reparational compensation. Doesn't matter. Whereas local reparations locks you out of that.
Wow. Woo, do Jesus. I'm so glad I have y'all on this show to make the clarification. I was getting excited when California was discussing state repair.
Nah.
I want to talk. Yeah, I see now that we're being misled. I mean, this is why the movement takes cat naps, family, because we've got to stay on our toes. They got all kinds of ways. It's just like civil rights and affirmative action. They have all these ways to give with one hand and take with the other. I'm so thankful that you got on this call. I have a question for you, Marlon. I'm going to bounce back, Marlon. I'm bouncing between the two of you because you're both sharing so much rich information with the ADOS family and our allies today. Thank you. I want to ask you about this. What they're doing in Chicago is tying the local repair to marijuana.
Yeah, so and that's another thing. So and this is in Evanston. This is a city north of us. So that's another problem I have with local reparations in the models they're trying to do. So what they're doing is they're in Evanston. The ordinance has already passed, but ordinances can be amended. So Arthur and I are working on talking with the alderwoman. Her name is Robin Simmons, on getting the language on this thing right. So the language is so important. Specificity is so important, as we know, being ADOS, as you know, we've learned, but that applies to bills and ordinances too. So what they're doing in Evanston is they've passed what they're calling a reparations ordinance, and they're using the projected sales tax from cannabis sales to fund to fund this initiative. And what they're going to do is what they're projecting in the projection. Remember, that's an important word. What they're projecting is based on the sales tax, they'll get $1 million a year. They're looking to raise $10 million for this fund, this reparations fund. And based on their projections of what marijuana sales will be, they're saying they would potentially raise $1 million a year, which means it would take them 10 years to raise the funds for this account. What also, if you do the math in Evanston, it's about, I think it's about maybe 10 to 15,000 black folk in Evanston. Many of them aren't ADOS. Doing the math on this thing, what that means is if they're successful in their projection, is the value would equal to $100 a person a year for 10 years. Okay. So local reparations. Another problem is, first of all, they don't have a price tag on it. It's just kind of loose and haphazardly. You know, they just say, well, this is a reparations package. There's no price tag. There's no objective to close the wealth gap, which is what national reparations and the $10 to $12 trillion price tag would do. It's just a haphazard thing to say we're doing reparations. Also, the other problem I have with cannabis being used is that's a speculative thing, meaning you don't know what it's going to produce. We don't know. We're just projecting these things. See, with pure reparations, I want national reparations to come out of something like FICA. We know what that's going to be. All right, that's not a speculation. That's not speculative. And it has a price tag on it when we talk about pure national reparations. With these local initiatives, There is no price tag. It's just using the words reparations because it's a popular topic right now in many cases to try and do what they should be doing anyway in their cities. In your local city, for instance, here in Chicago, black people are 33% of Chicago. I don't need reparations to get 33% of the funds that come through the city of Chicago. Right now in Chicago, 85% of all the contracts go to the white community. The white community is 30% of Chicago. 5% of the public works contracts go to ADOS in Chicago. Well, I don't need reparations to get a fair share of those contracts. That's equity. I don't need a bill for that. I should be able to go to my local representative and say, you need to fight to bring us some contracts or we're not going to vote for you. That's equity. That's not reparations. So if you allow them to call it reparations, you're going to end up diluting what should be ours anyway. Reparations is in addition to local equity. Don't forget that. Reparations is in addition to equity.
Plus, to your earlier point, that repair doesn't just go to ADOS. It goes to Black immigrants too.
Correct.
And do you know the percentage of Black immigrants in Chicago?
Well, again, this is an Evanston bill. And in Evanston, it's a heavily foreign Black population. There's a lot of Jamaicans and Africans and Haitians up there. So it could be half the people up there Black people up there may not even be ADOS. So that's another problem with it.
Let me bring Arthur in. Arthur, I hope you didn't lose your point. Thank you, Marlon. Arthur, go ahead, jump in.
This is the other thing that you got to understand about these initiatives. Notice, and I'm telling you, fact check me if you want, please. All of these initiatives are being brought about by Democrats. No Republicans. Democrats
are screwing us.
Yeah, Caribbean, non-for-profits, and also the two main Pan-African reparations organizations in Cobra and NARC. Okay? So in Cobra and NARC, this is a money grab for them because what they want to do is they want to get consulting and research fees out of this. Okay? That's what they're trying to do in Chicago, but it's still, I think at this point, it's still locked up in committee. Is that right, Marlon?
Yeah, it's still in committee. It's still in committee.
Yeah, okay. And, but it's a money play for a lot of these people. Also, you got the locals, the local representatives that really just don't want to do their jobs. So this is where we're at with this stuff.
Let me add to that real quick, Angela. So I was on a conference, speaking in Cobra, I was on a conference call with Cam Howard, which is the national co-chair of Cobra here in Chicago. And he told me, and it was about 40 or 50 other people on the phone, that what their purpose is in Chicago is to create a reparations commission. And that reparations commission would be funded by $1 million. And that commission would study reparations. And
oh my God!
Well, so it gets. I know that's bad, but it gets worse. So somebody on the conference call, somebody from ADOS Chicago, asked them, so if the commission is successful, if it comes back affirmative that reparations should be paid, what happens next? He says, well, we seek to get money put into a reparations fund. Somebody had the nerve to ask who would be the principals of the fund. He said, we would. Somebody else had the nerve to ask, somebody from ADOS Chicago said, well, what would you do with the funds? And this was his words. He said, and very nervously so, that we would take those funds and give them to non-for-profits that's been operating in the city of Chicago for certain numbers of years. This is a money grab. This ain't reparations. Pure reparations goes to the descendants of the injured party. It's cash that goes to the descendants and other resources that goes to the descendants of the injured party. That's what pure reparations is. What they're talking about doing is that's not reparations. That's something else. Okay, so that's another thing. That's another thing with local reparations. It allows people and private entities to get their hands on the money. Be clear. If it's a national project, you can't slide your non-for-profit in. It's difficult to slide your non-for-profit in if it's a national project and the federal government is the intermediary between the people and the payment. But when it's local, well, you can play a little political tricks and games and slide yourself in there and get your hands on that money. So this local stuff is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
Right.
Wow.
The other thing, Angela, that I want you to understand is to stand up on your understanding. What I mean is this. ADOS is the only organization in this country that has a true understanding of reparations. Okay? Both NARC and in COBRA, they had some influence in shaping HR 40 into the version that we have now. And it is because of the lack of expertise within those organizations that further edits are needed to make HR 40 reasonably operational.
Right. There's no teeth in it as it stands currently.
No. That's why Dr. Darry's edits are so necessary to be added to HR 40.
Wow. I am just blown away with this exchange today. We've got 5 minutes left, family. I want to go through the comments because they've been really active, and rightfully so. You guys have got them fired up. Let's see here. Hi, Rita. ADOS. Hey, ADOS North. She's shouting you out. All right. ADOS Houston. How is this? Oh, okay. That's on the Ghana piece I was discussing earlier. It's one of the hot topics while I was waiting to get you guys in on the call. ADOS North says, I don't understand this, ADOS North. You may want to comment again. Hold on. I lost my scroll. You said, I don't even think we share in trillions. I don't really know what that means. I don't even think we share in trillions. Well, I was speaking of the trillions we are owed with respect to reparations. I don't know what you mean by I don't even think we share in trillions. If you could type in the chat, I'll expound on that. Let's see, Ghanaians should be speaking to paying ADOS reparations and dual citizenship for selling us off instead of painting it as a homecoming of sorts, instead of what it is, an overpriced tour. That's right, Nigel. You're absolutely right. I totally concur with that. Okay, we did that one. We were and still, Joe Hankins says, we were and still are stuck in the medical mental trap where a lot of us don't receive quality care. Marlon, that's to our conversation about the veterans. Okay, She commented and said that we are still stuck. We absolutely are. And for those of you who are new to the movement and new to this channel, visit ADOS101.com. We absolutely have a component in there where we receive therapy for post-traumatic slave syndrome. We have a lot that we have got to heal from, family. You're absolutely right, Joe Hankins. ADOS North was shouting you out. Facts, Marlon. It exists through help of the government to keep us out. Poverty. Nigel says poverty are crimes of ADOS-ness. Poverty crimes of ADOS-ness. Yeah, that is what we were referring to earlier, Arthur, when we were talking about the violence in our communities and how it being interrelated to lack of education and lack of jobs. And Marlon unpacked that beautifully with the 5 different ways that you can earn money, crime being amongst those 5. And because we've been locked out of access to the white capital that we built, sadly, a lot of our communities are deferring to crime to survive. Yes. Let's see here. Don't let me start telling that story. Don't let me start telling my story. ADOS North, I'm going to have you on my show. We need your story. ADOS North is experiencing homelessness up in the Bay Area. I can't wait. I pray that we can put her on the live and let's talk about it, because far too many of us are experiencing homelessness. Far too many ADOS. We built the country and yet we're being locked out. Down here in Los Angeles, you guys have heard me share it on the show before, but for those of you who are new to the live, we are 6% of the population here in Southern California, but 80% on Skid Row. And now they're doing this, and we're also amongst the working homeless living in our cars. I'm very blessed to not be amongst those numbers, but this is why I fight. I come from corporate America, Wells Fargo Bank, earning 6 figures a year, and it's been a challenge to get back up to that level because we have no social capital here in Southern California. We're not in a position to hire. And also they're requiring that you know Spanish just to get a job interview. And even if you know Spanish, you don't have the complexion for the protection. Okay. Yeah. That's what's happening. It's a trick. It's all of it another form of racism. And because we don't have affirmative action, and where they're incentivizing these corporations to hire us specifically, you guys know this to be true too for the contracts in Chicago. You're having to fight just to have contracts for ADOS. Well, it's the same thing here for jobs. Without enforceable policy to protect us, we are not a protected class. When I see this country protecting illegals and giving them rights to vote and giving them rights to a driver license, doing everything they can to not even need the Black vote. That's why these Democrats want to open these borders. And while I'm on that, and I'm almost at a minute before I have to let you guys go, but can you guys speak on, I'm going to read these comments, guys. I'll get back to you. I got to talk about this real quick. Can you speak on the importance of all of us getting on code and stop being afraid to make the Democratic Party eat this election?
Well,
we got so many, yeah. Let me finish real quick. We've got so many people who are so, their priority is unseating Trump as if he is the worst thing that has happened to us. They're totally ignoring how we lost advantages under Obama and how imperative it is that we vote as a bloc to send a strong message to the Democrats who will get on the debate stage and deflect to immigration over having a real conversation about the reparations that is the debt that we are owed. Can you please, Marlon, and then I want to go to you, Arthur, to get you guys perspective on this and to get your help in enlisting all of ADOS to not only grow the movement, but to get people onto the Project Show Up, Vote Down. Marlon, you go first.
Yeah, so I want to let Arthur speak to that. Arthur speaks to that very well. And then afterwards, I want to make a closing statement, and then we can on some things that were said. So,
okay, great. Go ahead, Arthur. It's in your court.
Okay. Well, actually, our priority is not who's president. Okay. Whoever gets in there, and I believe it will be Trump. The hell with it. All right. So what? Our priority should be at this point shutting down local reparations. It is so important because that is what's going to snatch. This is a new Democratic strategy I'm trying to tell you. We see it here in Chicago. We have to get on code in terms of shutting down this local reparations stuff. It's got to be over, okay? And then from now on, from this point, we need to get back on education, getting weekly meetings going on in all local areas, and getting more and more people onto the message, because the great thing about the ADOS message is that once people hear it articulated by a sincere ADOS individual, they get it and they come. That's been my experience.
Thank you, Arthur. Your closing remarks, Marlon?
So thank you for having us on the show. And I want to thank everybody for commenting and chiming in. And so I'll say a couple things. One, on the Biden thing, on the Biden response to reparations. To counterpoint him, we need to do a national statement on his response. That's one thing. A
Yes.
national press release or something like that. Secondly, and lastly, on the Ghana piece, I firmly believe that from what I understand, the tribes that they took us from, that they sold us from, are still there. And so if Ghana wants to have a sincere relationship with descendants of slavery, they need to pay reparations to those tribes. They need to make them whole. I'm not looking for reparations from Ghana. Ghana owes the tribes that are still there. Until they do that, I can't take serious some fake olive branch. And lastly, on the year of return and going to see the slave dungeons, I look at it like this: if I wouldn't pay an American to take me on a tour of a slave plantation where they bought and tortured me, why would I pay an African to take me on a tour of a slave dungeon where they sold and tortured me? I don't see the difference.
Hello. Well, those are great closing comments. Arthur, did you have anything more to add, or can I sign you guys out to get on with your afternoon?
Yeah, don't, you know what? Let's keep doing the work. Don't worry about who's president, and let's shut this local reparation stuff down.
Yes, ADOS, ADOS. Family, I want to thank my guests today. I am just so blessed to have you on my show. You have richly blessed me and my audience by taking your time to be with us today. We're just grateful to each of you for the work you're doing in Chicago and the work you're doing on a national level to help our people get the repair we are long overdue. And with that said, family, I want to bid you all a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your Saturday. I want you to make it a wonderful, beautiful holiday season. Remember to love each other up during this holiday season and stay safe in these streets. And for those of you who'd like my closing prayer, please stay tuned. It's really brief. For those of you who just ain't feeling it, you're free to go. But quickly, I want to pray over the ADOS and our allies that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and so it is. Peace, family. You make it a great day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.